Sheikh Hamdan royal family outraged. Prince chooses older woman over princess drama. English poetry in the golden halls of silence, where marble listens to secrets. A young prince walks alone, carrying a heart heavier than crowns. His name is spoken with respect, but his soul trembles with desire. Born to rule, not to choose, raised to obey ancient echoes. The palace breathes tradition. Every wall remembers duty. Every window watches his steps. Every shadow judges his dreams. They prepared a princess for him, young, graceful, shaped by protocol. Her smile trained like a lesson, her voice soft like an order. She stood beside destiny, not beside his heartbeat. Her eyes reflected the throne, not the storms within him. Then came the woman of years, older than whispers dare to admit. Her presence calm and deep, like a desert night full of stars. She carried stories in her eyes, pain, wisdom, patience, and fire. Not shaped by palace rules, not polished for royal approval. She saw the prince as a man, not as a future symbol. She listened to his silence and answered without fear. In her words, he found rest. In her arms, he found truth. Time bowed before their bond. Age dissolved into meaning. But love in royal blood is measured by history, and history does not forgive those who break its script. The family felt the shift, like thunder before rain. Voices rose behind curtains. Faces hardened with outrage. They spoke of honor, of lineage and power, of how a prince must reflect the mirror of the nation. They called her a shadow, a distraction, a danger. They called him reckless, blinded by forbidden affection. But no one asked his heart what it had endured. No one counted the nights he prayed to feel alive. The prince stood before them, calm yet burning inside, his choice carved into his soul. Stronger than fear, he spoke of love without permission, of connection beyond age, of a woman who healed him when titles failed. The room froze in disbelief. Tradition shaking in silence, a royal line questioned by one honest confession. Outside the palace walls, the world began to whisper. Some called it scandal. Others called it courage. A prince choosing truth over scripted romance. A heart choosing depth over polished youth. She waited far from the noise, not asking for crowns, ready to walk away if love demanded sacrifice. Her strength was quiet, her dignity unbroken. She did not beg history to accept her place, and in that moment, the prince understood power, not in command or wealth, but in standing for love. The drama burned on, across halls and headlines, but something had shifted forever. A line crossed by the heart. This is not the end, only the first fracture, between duty and desire, between bloodline and breath. The night holds its breath as dawn approaches slowly, and the prince walks forward, with love beside him. Part 1 closes here, with fire still rising, and destiny still undecided, waiting for the next truth to be spoken. Morning arrives without warmth. The palace wakes in tension. Corridors echo with footsteps, not of servants, but of judgment. Eyes follow the prince. Whispers cling to his shadow. Respect mixed with disbelief. Love turned into accusation. The elders gather in silence, faces carved by generations. They carry the weight of ancestors, like armor around their hearts. They speak of legacy, of names written in stone, of alliances built on marriage, not on feeling. They remind him of promises made before he could speak, of destinies chosen for him. Before love learned his name, they say the woman is a storm that will erode the throne. They say her age is a wound that time will mock. But the prince listens calmly, his heart steady like flame. Because once truth is known, illusion loses its power. He remembers her hands, rough with lived years, gentle with understanding, holding him without demand. He remembers her voice, not sweet but honest, not trained but real, calling him by his soul. Outside the palace, the city hums with rumor. Some curse his defiance. Some secretly admire his courage. Young lovers feel hope rise. Older hearts feel pain reopen. Because his choice awakens dreams long buried. The princess hears the news. In a room full of mirrors, she sees her reflection crack. Not from jealousy, but confusion. She was raised for this role, taught how to smile and wait, but never taught how to be chosen for simply being herself. She does not hate the woman. She hates the system that dressed love like duty and called it honor. Meanwhile, the woman waits in a quiet place far away, watching the sky change colors, prepared for loss. She knows the cost of loving him, knows the weight he carries. She does not cling, she does not command. If he returns to the throne, she will release him. If he walks away from power, she will walk beside him. This is her strength, not youth, not beauty, but the courage to let go. If love requires freedom, the family plans quietly, meetings behind closed doors. They consider distance, exile, silent separation. They believe time can erase her, that pressure can bend him, that blood will defeat the heart, as it always has. But they forget one thing: a man awakened by love is no longer asleep to fear. The prince stands alone at night, looking at the city lights, each one a life unchained, each one a reminder. He thinks of his future, of crowns that feel heavy, of thrones that feel empty. Without her presence, he knows a choice approaches, not tomorrow, not next year, but now, in this breath. To obey and slowly disappear, or to love and become real. The moon watches silently as history holds its breath and destiny sharpens its edge. Night falls heavy on the palace. Lights glow like watchful eyes. The air tastes of decision, and sleep refuses mercy. The prince is summoned, not with anger but finality. A long table waits for him, polished by centuries of control. Faces sit like carved stone, voices measured and cold. They do not shout, they do not plead. They offer him a future, wrapped in approval, a marriage of alliance, a life without scandal. In return, they ask silence, distance from the woman, erasure of a chapter. They promise peace. The word peace feels hollow, like a room without air. He listens without shaking, but his heart speaks louder. He thinks of mornings with her, where time slowed gently, where he was not a symbol, but a breathing man. He thinks of her waiting, without demands or threats, ready to vanish if that would save him. The elders sense resistance. They tighten the terms. Privileges become conditions. Love becomes a liability. They warn him of consequences, of public shame, of history rewriting his name. In colder ink, they remind him of blood, of ancestors watching, of how one choice can stain generations. The prince rises slowly. The room stills. Even the walls lean closer to hear his truth. He speaks of life without love as a slow disappearance, of duty without soul as a beautiful prison. He speaks of a woman who saw him unguarded, who touched his wounds without fear of their depth. He says he will not erase her, will not pretend she was a mistake, will not trade truth for comfort. Silence crashes like thunder, not loud but crushing. The offer is withdrawn. The path is narrowed. They give him one last chance. Time to reconsider. Time meant to suffocate. Hope. But outside those walls, the woman feels the shift, as if the air itself warns her that sacrifice is near. She prepares herself, not with tears, but with clarity and grace. She writes him no farewell. She trusts his heart more than promises, more than fate. The princess also stands alone, released quietly from expectation, her role dissolving. Like mist in sun, she understands now. That love cannot be assigned. That freedom belongs to those brave enough. The city watches the palace, waiting for collapse or legend. No one knows which will come first. At dawn, the prince walks out, not escorted, not hidden. He steps into uncertainty. Without armor, the crown remains behind, heavy on its velvet, power untouched, but less alive. He chooses a road, without maps, only heartbeat and truth. Part 3 closes here, with doors unguarded, with futures unclaimed, with love standing unprotected. The road opens before dawn, quiet and unclaimed. Dust rises under his steps, each step lighter than the crown. The city fades behind him. Minarets soften into memory. He walks without escort, without decree. News travels faster than truth. Tongues sharpen in markets. Some mourn the fallen prince. Some wait for regret. They say he will return broken. They say love will age him. They say power always wins in the end. But the prince walks forward, not chasing victory, not escaping shame, only following breath. Far away, the woman senses him, not by sound or sign, but by a calm settling in her chest. She looks up from silence, the sky wide and forgiving, years of endurance standing gently in her eyes. When they meet, there is no rush, no drama, only recognition. Two lives aligned at last, not as scandal, not as rebellion, but as truth. She touches his face slowly, as if confirming reality. He smiles without weight. For the first time, no guards surround them, no walls listen, no titles interrupt. The moment, they speak of simple things: morning light, shared tea, time reclaimed. Yet the world does not forget. The palace still watches. Letters arrive without warmth, offers wrapped in warning. They tell him doors remain open. If he returns alone, if he reshapes his choice into obedience, he reads without anger, without longing. He knows what he left, And why? The woman does not influence. She never asks. She never binds. She stands beside. This is love without chains, without fear, without performance, strong in stillness. Back in the palace, rooms feel larger and emptier, the throne untouched, echoing absence. The elders feel unease, not from loss of power, but from loss of control. Over narrative, the princess begins anew, away from mirrors, away from rehearsal, finding her own voice. She breathes freely. For the first time, not chosen, but choosing. The people debate endlessly. What is honor? What is duty? What is courage? Songs begin to form, not official, not approved, but alive. They sing of a prince who stepped down to step into himself. They sing softly. Time moves forward, as it always does, grinding outrage into memory, turning scandal into story. The prince builds a quieter life, without banners, without command, but with meaning. The woman grows lighter, years no longer heavy, age no longer weapon, but history honored. They know challenges remain, distance, judgment, sacrifice, but they face them awake. Together, love does not erase cost. It accepts it, pays it, and still stands. Years pass without ceremony. Seasons turn gently. The world learns new stories and forgets old outrage. The prince is no longer whispered as scandal alone. His name softens into something human. Children in the streets speak of him simply as the one who chose his own breath. The palace still stands, strong and unmoved, but something within its walls has cracked forever. Tradition adjusts slowly, not broken, but bent by memory. The elders grow quieter, their certainty less sharp, because one refusal changed the shape of obedience. They no longer speak of love as weakness. They speak of it as risk. The princess thrives elsewhere, building a life unassigned. Her smile no longer rehearsed, her joy earned. She becomes proof that release can be mercy, that endings can heal. Both sides. The woman walks through years with calm authority, her age no longer measured by judgment. She becomes presence, not explanation, not defense, but truth. The prince stands beside her, not above, not ahead, but equal. They share small rituals, sunrise walks, shared silence, uncelebrated joy. No banners record this life, no anthem names it, yet it endures. Without permission, sometimes at night, he dreams of marble halls, not with regret, but understanding. He knows what he left and what he gained, a crown exchanged for clarity. History begins to revise itself, quietly, as it always does. When courage survives, scholars debate the choice, poets soften the tale, and people listening closely hear freedom. Children ask why he left. Parents answer carefully, because love matters more than fear. And in that answer, something shifts again. Another future opens slightly. The prince grows older, without bitterness, without longing for what never fit. The woman ages beautifully, not fading, but deepening. Like meaning, they do not call it sacrifice, they call it living. They do not call it rebellion, they call it honesty. The palace remains a symbol, but not the center. The center moves. Where truth is chosen, legacy is not blood alone. It is courage passed silently, from one brave act to another. And so the story settles, not as tragedy, not as fairy tale, but as example that a life chosen fully echoes longer than a throne inherited without heart. Time moves beyond names, beyond faces, beyond rumor, into myth. The story loosens from history, slips into memory, where facts soften and meaning grows. Children hear it at dusk, not from books, but from voices lowered with care. They speak of a prince, not defined by palace, but by a moment of truth. They no longer measure his age or hers. They measure courage against fear. The woman becomes a symbol, not of scandal, but of seeing clearly. When others looked away, in retellings she is ageless, neither young nor old, only present, only steady. The prince becomes a question, asked quietly. What would you choose? If everything watched, poets remove the noise. They strip away outrage. They keep one image, a man walking forward. Pain is remembered, but not centered. Loss is named, but not worshipped. What remains is choice, pure and exposed. A single step, away from permission. The palace fades into backdrop. Marble turns to metaphor. Thrones become shadows. Behind the heart, scholars argue softly. Was it love or pride? Was it weakness or strength? The myth does not answer. Myths never explain. They invite, they wait. For the listener, some hear defiance, some hear peace, some hear warning, some hear freedom. That is how legends survive, by holding many truths, without locking one in stone. The woman in the story never demands devotion. She stands and waits, not because she doubts, but because love that must trap is not love. The prince in the story never regrets. He wonders, but does not retreat. Wonder becomes wisdom. Wisdom becomes quiet. Quiet becomes depth. Depth becomes legacy. Years later, a young ruler hesitates at the edge of command, remembering not the details, but the feeling that life is brief and truth matters. And somewhere far from power, two lives continue, unrecorded, but complete. They are not saints, they are not heroes, they are human, and that is enough. The myth settles into culture, like dust into stone, invisible, but shaping. People forget names, forget dates, forget outrage, but keep the lesson that love chosen freely outlives fear enforced, that a heart awakened changes the future. Echo does not arrive loudly. It moves slowly from one life into another. Years after the choice, the world feels different, not because power fell, but because fear loosened. Young voices speak more openly. Old walls listen. Rules remain, but they breathe. In the palace halls, new princes learn history, not only victories, but